The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched upward for nearly a kilometer, its crystalline walls reflecting the soft blue light from thousands of hovering platforms. Each platform held representatives from different spacefaring civilizations, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some were gaseous beings contained in special environmental suits, others were insectoid creatures with multiple limbs, and still others were various types of humanoids. High Counselor Marcus Wells stood at the central speaking platform, his simple black earth diplomatic uniform standing out among the elaborate robes and ceremonial armors worn by other species. At 45 years old, with graying hair at his temples and lines of experience around his eyes, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent decades in diplomatic service. The council speaker, a tall being with iridescent scales and 4 arms, raised their ceremonial staff. The council recognizes the representative from Earth. You may present your case against the proposed trade restrictions. Marcus took a deep breath, looking up at the sea of alien faces. Most showed expressions of boredom or mild disdain. After all, Earth had only achieved faster-than-light travel 60 years ago, making humans mere infants compared to civilizations that had been spacefaring for thousands or even millions of years. Honorable representatives of the Galactic Council, Marcus began, his voice clear and steady. For the past 20 years, humanity has worked tirelessly to integrate into the galactic community. We have followed your regulations, shared our unique innovations, and established peaceful trade relations with over 40 species. A low murmur rippled through the chamber. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably, likely remembering how human innovations in materials science and quantum computing had rapidly transformed several industrial sectors. The proposed trade restrictions, Marcus continued, will not only harm Earth's economy but will devastate our outer colonies. These colonies depend on interstellar trade for basic necessities. By restricting human ships to only 6 approved trade routes, you'll be cutting off vital supply lines to over 20 million human colonists. The council speaker interrupted, their scales flickering with barely concealed annoyance. The expansion of human colonies has been deemed aggressive and potentially destabilizing to the established order. In just 60 years, your species has established colonies in 47 star systems. This rate of expansion is unprecedented. Marcus gripped the edges of his podium. With all due respect, we expanded into unclaimed systems, following all council protocols. We simply did it efficiently. Necessity has always driven human innovation. Our planet's harsh climate variations and limited resources taught us to adapt quickly and think creatively. A representative from one of the elder races, a being of pure energy contained within a mechanical shell, spoke up. Perhaps if humans spent thousands of years in contemplation and careful planning like civilized species, they wouldn't need to scramble for resources like primitive creatures. Scattered laughter echoed through the chamber. Marcus felt his face grow hot, but kept his composure. I must warn this council that these restrictions will be seen as an act of aggression by many humans. We are not asking for special treatment, merely fair treatment. History has shown that attempting to contain human expansion through artificial means often leads to unexpected consequences. Is that a threat, Representative Wells? The council speaker asked, their scales now pulsing with angry red colors. Not a threat, Speaker. A warning. Humans are remarkably adaptable and creative, especially when backed into a corner. We would much prefer to work together as equals. The council speaker raised all 4 arms, a gesture of dismissal. The council has heard Earth's concerns. However, the resolution has already gained majority support. The trade restrictions will be implemented within 6 standard months. This is for the stability of the galaxy. Humanity must learn patience and respect for the natural order. Marcus looked around the chamber one last time, noting the smug expressions on many faces. He bowed slightly, following diplomatic protocol, even as disappointment and worry churned in his stomach. Then let the record show that Earth formally protested these restrictions and warned of their consequences. Good day. As he stepped off the platform, Marcus couldn't help but think that many of these ancient civilizations had grown too comfortable in their power, too set in their ways. They had forgotten a crucial lesson that humanity had learned through countless conflicts on Earth. Underestimating your opponent is often the first step toward defeat. 6 months passed quickly. The trade restrictions hit Earth's colonies hard, just as Marcus Wells had warned. The Star Trader, a small merchant vessel carrying medical supplies and food to the outer colony of New Hope, drifted through space along one of the 6 approved trade routes. Captain Robert Miller stood on the bridge, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of navigation screens. He was an experienced spacer, having run cargo ships for 15 years. The new trade restrictions meant longer routes and more dangerous jumps, but people in the colonies needed supplies. "Captain, we've got 3 ships approaching," said Tom, his young navigator. "They're showing council enforcement signatures." Miller nodded calmly. "Send them our clearance codes. All our papers are in order." The crew of 15 continued their work, used to council inspections by now. They had nothing to hide. Their cargo hold contained only approved supplies, carefully documented and sealed with council verification stamps. But something was wrong. The council ships weren't slowing down. "Captain," Tom's voice cracked with alarm, "they're charging weapons." Miller grabbed the ship's comm. "Council vessels, this is the Star Trader. We are a registered merchant vessel carrying approved cargo on an approved route. Please respond." The response came in the form of 3 energy beams that sliced through space. The Star Trader's shields, designed for protection against space debris, didn't stand a chance against military-grade weapons. "All hands, emergency stations," Miller shouted. "Send out a distress signal." The bridge erupted in activity. Warning lights flashed red as the crew desperately tried to save their ship. But the council vessels kept firing, methodically targeting their engines, then their communication array. "Why are they doing this?" Tom asked, his hands shaking as he tried to maintain their failing systems. "We followed all their rules." Miller didn't answer. He was too busy sending out one final message on all frequencies. "This is the Star Trader. We are under unprovoked attack by council enforcement vessels. We have families. Please." The next shot cut through the bridge. In seconds, the Star Trader broke apart, its pieces scattering across space. 15 lives ended in silent flashes of light and metal. News of the attack reached Earth within hours. The public was outraged. Families mourned. Politicians demanded answers. The Council's response only made things worse. The vessel known as Star Trader was destroyed after scans revealed illegal weapons, announced the Council speaker to the gathered press. Their scales shimmered with false sympathy. The ship's destruction was unfortunate, but necessary to maintain galactic security. In his office at Earth's diplomatic headquarters, Marcus Wells watched the announcement, his hands clenched into fists. He knew the Council was lying. The Star Trader's manifest had crossed his desk. It was carrying nothing but basic supplies. His computer chimed. A message appeared. "Protocol Omega is now active. Your presence is requested at Site B." Marcus stared at the screen for a long moment. Protocol Omega. The contingency plan he had hoped they'd never need to use. It seemed the Council had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. Across the solar system, hidden things began to stir. In asteroid bases beyond Neptune, lights came on in secret hangars. In underground facilities on Mars, computers activated long-dormant programs. On Earth, retired military officers received coded messages calling them back to service. The Council thought they had just eliminated a small problem, a single human merchant ship that needed to be taught a lesson. They thought humanity would protest, complain, and eventually accept their place as a minor species. They were wrong. In his quarters that night, Marcus looked out at the stars and remembered the crew of the Star Trader. Robert Miller had been a friend. They'd shared drinks just last month, talking about Miller's plans to retire and spend time with his grandchildren. "They think we're primitive," Marcus whispered to himself. They think we'll just accept this injustice because they're older and more powerful. He picked up a small data chip, his resignation from the diplomatic service. They're about to learn why humans survived all those centuries of war and hardship on Earth. The spark had been lit. Now would come the fire. Deep inside an asteroid base beyond Neptune's orbit, Admiral James Cooper walked through a massive hangar bay that officially didn't exist. At 65 years old, with a strong build and sharp blue eyes, he'd been called out of retirement for one final mission. His footsteps echoed as he studied the warship before him, the HMS Nightshade. Beautiful, isn't she? Asked Dr. Linda Reed, the project's lead engineer. She was a brilliant woman in her 40s who had spent the last decade secretly developing these ships. We've hidden these beauties for 5 years, waiting for a day we hoped would never come. The Nightshade was unlike any ship the Council races had ever seen. Its dark hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it, making it nearly invisible to standard sensors. But what made it truly special was inside. "Show me the weapon systems," Cooper ordered, following Dr. Reed into the ship. They walked through corridors lined with technology that would make Council scientists gasp. Humanity hadn't just been copying alien technology. They'd been improving it, combining it with human innovations in ways the older races had never imagined. Each ship has 3 main weapons, Dr. Reed explained, pointing to various displays. First, standard energy cannons, but ours use focused quantum beams that can pierce Council shields like paper. Second, electromagnetic pulse generators that can disable their ships without destroying them. And third, she smiled proudly, gravity bombs. Cooper raised an eyebrow. Gravity bombs? The Council thinks that's impossible. The Council thinks a lot of things are impossible. That's why they'll lose. They reached the bridge, where crew members were running final checks. The ship could operate with just 20 people, unlike Council vessels that needed hundreds. Humans had always been good at doing more with less. "How many ships do we have?" Cooper asked, settling into the captain's chair. 15 Nightshade-class warships spread across 4 secret bases in the outer solar system, plus 30 smaller corvettes for quick strikes. Not a huge fleet, but each ship is worth 10 of theirs. Cooper nodded, studying the tactical displays. The Council had thousands of ships, but they were scattered across their territory, connected by quantum communication networks their scientists had developed over thousands of years. "Status of Operation Silent Night?" he asked. Dr. Reed pulled up another display. "Dr. Stone's team has mapped 80% of their quantum network nodes. Once we're ready, we can cut their faster-than-light communications. They'll be blind and divided." A young officer approached with a tablet. "Sir, the last crew assignments are complete. We're ready to begin fleet exercises." Cooper took the tablet, remembering the faces of the Star Trader's crew. The Council thought they had killed 15 helpless humans. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant. "The Council believes we're primitive because we've only been in space for 60 years, Cooper said, standing to address the bridge crew. "They don't understand that those 60 years came after thousands of years of warfare on Earth. We learned the hard way that the best weapon isn't the biggest ship or the strongest gun." He walked to the front viewport, looking out at the other ships being prepared for battle. "The best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know you have, until it's too late." Dr. Reed joined him at the viewport. "The Council keeps telling us to be patient, to wait centuries before we can be considered their equals." Cooper smiled grimly. "They're about to learn that humans have a different kind of patience. We don't wait passively. We prepare. Every restriction they put on us, every insult they threw at us, just gave us more time to get ready." The lights in the hangar began to change, signaling the start of launch preparations. Throughout the base, crews rushed to their stations. The fleet that humanity had hidden for years was awakening. "Send the word to all ships," Cooper ordered. "Operation Silent Night begins in 48 hours. Let's show the Council why they should have listened to our warnings." As the Nightshade's engines powered up, Cooper thought about how the Council would react when they realized the truth. The humans they had dismissed as primitive had built something remarkable in secret, not just advanced ships, but a whole strategy the Council would never see coming. The response they had dismissed as impossible was about to begin. Dr. Emma Stone sat in her dimly lit laboratory on Mars, surrounded by holographic displays showing the complex web of quantum communications that connected Council worlds. At 38, she had spent the last 3 years secretly studying the Council's most prized technology, their faster-than-light communication network. "There it is again," she muttered, adjusting her glasses. "The same flaw in every single node." Her assistant, Mike, looked up from his own screens. "Are you sure it's a flaw? The Council has used this network for over 10,000 years." Emma stood up and walked to the main display, her tired eyes scanning the quantum patterns. "That's exactly the problem. They've used the same system for so long, they never questioned its basic design. Look here." She pointed to a pattern that repeated across all Council communication nodes. They built their entire network on 6th-dimensional quantum folding. It's elegant, advanced, and completely vulnerable to 7th-dimensional disruption. "But the Council says 7th-dimensional quantum mechanics is impossible," Mike said, frowning at the display. Emma laughed softly. "The Council says a lot of things are impossible. Humans approached quantum physics differently. While they spent millennia perfecting 6th-dimensional folding, we started fresh. Sometimes being primitive means you're free to try new paths." Alerts flashed across their screens as new data came in from their hidden probes. The Council's network was vast, connecting thousands of worlds with instant communication. It was the backbone of their civilization, controlling everything from trade to defense. "How many nodes have we mapped?" Emma asked, checking the latest figures. 95% of their primary network," Mike replied. "The probes we hid in their trade ships have done their job. They were so busy looking for weapons, they never noticed the tiny quantum sensors." Emma nodded, remembering how the Council had laughed at humanity's primitive understanding of quantum physics during scientific conferences. They never realized that humans had developed a completely different approach, one that made their network's weakness visible. Her computer chimed with an encrypted message from Admiral Cooper. "Operation Silent Night begins in 24 hours. Are you ready?" She typed back a simple yes before turning to her team. 20 of Earth's best quantum physicists had worked in secret for years, preparing for this moment. They had built and tested the disruption devices, making sure they could shut down the Council's network without harming anything else. "Begin final checks on the quantum disruptors," she ordered. "I want every device tested and ready in 6 hours." The lab burst into activity. The disruptors were small, about the size of a coffee cup, but each one could create a 7th-dimensional quantum field that would unravel the Council's communication nodes. 300 of these devices had been distributed throughout Council space, hidden on asteroids, space debris, and even attached to the hulls of Council ships by stealth drones. "Dr. Stone," called one of her team members, "I'm detecting increased traffic on their network. They're discussing the human situation." Emma walked over to monitor the intercepted communications. The Council was holding an emergency session, discussing reports of unusual activity in human space. Some representatives were calling for stricter measures against Earth. "They still think they can control us with trade restrictions and shows of force," Emma said, shaking her head. "They never considered that we might find a way to turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness." She remembered the destruction of the Star Trader, how the Council had dismissed 15 human lives as insignificant. Their arrogance was about to cost them everything they took for granted. "Send word to Admiral Cooper," she ordered. "The quantum network is mapped and analyzed. All disruptors are in position. We can begin Operation Silent Night at his command." As her team made the final preparations, Emma looked at a photo on her desk. It showed her as a graduate student, presenting a paper on 7th-dimensional quantum theory. The Council scientists had walked out of that presentation, calling her ideas impossible and primitive. "The funny thing about humans," she said softly, "is that we have a habit of making the impossible possible." In 24 hours, the Council would learn that their 10,000 years of technological development had a fatal flaw, one that only primitive humans had been able to see. The deception was complete. Now came the moment of truth. Operation Silent Night began at exactly 300 Earth Standard Time. Admiral Cooper stood on the bridge of the HMS Nightshade, watching as hundreds of small dots on his tactical display turned from green to red. Each dot represented a quantum disruptor activating across Council space. "First wave of disruptors activated," reported his communications officer. "Council quantum network disruption at 30% and climbing." Across Council space, confusion spread like wildfire. On thousands of worlds, quantum communication nodes suddenly went dark. Ships lost contact with their command centers. Trade networks fell silent. "Second wave activated," the officer announced. "Disruption at 65%. On the Council's capital world, the emergency alarms blared through the great chamber. The Council speaker rushed to their platform, their scales flashing in panic as more and more communication channels went dead. "What's happening?" they demanded. "Why can't we contact our fleet?" No one had an answer. The Council's technology experts rushed to their quantum nodes, only to find them trapped in seventh-dimensional quantum fields they didn't even know could exist. "Third and final wave activated," Cooper's officer reported. "Council quantum network disruption at 98%. Operation Silent Night is complete. Total time elapsed, 47 minutes. Cooper allowed himself a small smile. "Send the message to all human ships. Begin Phase 2. Across Council space, the hidden human fleet emerged from their hiding spots. The Nightshade-class ships, with their light-absorbing hulls, appeared like ghosts in the night. Their quantum beam weapons disabled Council ships before they could even raise their shields. "Sir," called out his tactical officer, "Council defense stations are trying to coordinate a response using light-speed communications. Response time between systems, 4 to 12 hours. "Exactly as planned." Cooper nodded. The Council had grown so dependent on instant quantum communications that they had almost forgotten how to fight at light speed. But humans, labeled as primitives, had trained for both. In the Mars Quantum Lab, Dr. Emma Stone watched the Council's network collapse. "Complete network failure achieved," she reported to Cooper. "They'll need years to rebuild, even if they figure out what we did." The human fleet moved with precision through Council space. They didn't destroy their targets. They didn't need to. Electromagnetic pulses disabled Council ships. Gravity bombs created temporary disruption fields around military bases. Strategic targets were cut off and isolated, all without a single life lost. On Earth, Marcus Wells prepared for his role. As reports of the human fleet's actions reached the Council worlds at light speed, panic began to spread. The mighty Council, which had ruled the galaxy for millennia, was being systematically paralyzed by the very species they had dismissed as primitive. "Council Defense Fleet attempting to gather at Sector 7, reported Cooper's tactical officer. "Let them," Cooper ordered. "At light-speed communications, it will take them 3 days to coordinate any meaningful response. By then, we'll be done." The Nightshade's bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. They had trained for years for this moment, while the Council thought humans were struggling under trade restrictions. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving thousands of distress calls from Council worlds. Their economies are freezing up without the quantum network. Trade ships can't coordinate. Emergency services are in chaos." Cooper nodded grimly. "Send them all the same response. The human fleet will maintain order in Council space until new communication protocols can be established. Resist, and face complete isolation." Within 6 hours, the first Council worlds began surrendering. Without their quantum network, without their coordinated fleets, faced with an enemy that could strike anywhere at will, they had no choice. "Admiral," his officer reported, "the Council speaker is requesting communication through traditional channels. Message reads, We are ready to discuss terms. Cooper looked at his tactical display, where the last few council ships were being disabled by his fleet. In just 47 minutes, humanity had done what the council had thought impossible, brought a galactic civilization to its knees without firing a single lethal shot. Send our response, Cooper ordered. Tell them humanity is ready to negotiate, as equals this time. The strike was over. Now came the hardest part, teaching the council that true civilization wasn't about age or technology, but about wisdom and respect. The council's emergency chamber felt different now. The once proud representatives sat quietly, their earlier arrogance replaced by shock and disbelief. The great quantum communication displays that usually filled the air were dark. Instead, old-style holographic projectors showed reports from across council space. The council speakers stood at their platform, scales now a dull gray of defeat. Before them, Admiral Cooper and Dr. Emma Stone represented Earth. Marcus Wells stood to the side, watching his former colleagues face the truth he had tried to warn them about. How? The speaker finally asked. How did you do this? Emma stepped forward, activating a simple display showing quantum patterns. Your entire civilization relies on sixth-dimensional quantum folding for communication. It's elegant, advanced, and has a fatal flaw that only fresh eyes could see. She highlighted a pattern. Humans discovered seventh-dimensional quantum mechanics because we started from scratch. We didn't have thousands of years of established theory holding us back. Your greatest weakness was believing you had nothing left to learn from younger species. Murmurs spread through the chamber. A representative from one of the eldest races stood up. Impossible. Our scientists studied quantum physics for millennia. That was the problem. Emma replied calmly. You stopped looking for alternatives. While you watched us struggle with primitive technology, we were building something new. Something you never thought to look for. Admiral Cooper activated another display, showing the human fleet's positions throughout council space. We could have used this knowledge to destroy your civilization. Instead, we chose to disable and contain. Not one life was lost during Operation Silent Night. The council members shifted uncomfortably, remembering how they had casually destroyed the Star Trader and its crew. Your quantum network will remain disrupted, Cooper continued, until we reach a new agreement. One based on mutual respect, not age or technological advancement. Marcus Wells finally stepped forward. I warned this council 6 months ago. I said humans were adaptable, creative, and dangerous when cornered. You responded by killing 15 innocent merchants. The speaker's scales flickered with shame. What are your demands? Cooper handed them a data tablet. First, all trade restrictions are immediately lifted. Second, Earth joins the Council as a full member with equal voting rights. Third, a joint Human Council Scientific Commission will be established to share technological advances. All advances. This is unprecedented, shouted one representative. You can't force us to. We already have, Emma interrupted. Right now, only human ships can communicate faster than light speed. Your economies are paralyzed. Your defense forces are scattered. We didn't achieve this through brute force or superior numbers, but through innovation and strategy. Marcus stepped closer to the speaker's platform. The choice is yours. Work with us as equals, or face a future where Earth becomes the new center of galactic civilization by default. Many worlds are already asking to join a human-led alliance. The chamber erupted in discussion. The council members knew they were beaten, not by weapons or armies, but by their own complacency. They had dismissed humans as primitive upstarts, never realizing that this very dismissal had given humanity the freedom to develop in ways they never imagined. Show them. Cooper nodded to Emma. She activated one final display. Plans for an eighth-dimensional quantum communication system. This is what humans have been developing while you restricted our trade. It's faster, more secure, and impossible to disrupt. We're willing to share this technology, but only with civilizations that treat us as equals. The council chamber fell silent. The representatives looked at the complex quantum equations with new eyes. seeing for the first time that their primitive human cousins had surpassed them in ways they never thought possible. The speaker raised their staff, scales now showing the blue of acceptance. The council concedes to human demands. Let it be recorded that we were wrong. Humanity has proven itself not just through power, but through wisdom we had forgotten. The wisdom to look at old problems with new eyes. As the council members began signing the new agreement, Marcus turned to Cooper and Emma. They finally understand. Sometimes, the youngest child sees what the eldest has forgotten. The revelation was complete. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps that was exactly what it needed. 1 year after Operation Silent Night, the newly renamed Galactic Cooperative held its first official meeting. The Great Chamber looked different now. The quantum displays were back online, but they used the new human-designed eighth-dimensional system. Representatives from Earth sat among the oldest races as equals, their simple uniforms a stark contrast to the elaborate dress of other species. Marcus Wells, now Earth's senior ambassador, stood at the central platform. Behind him sat Admiral Cooper and Dr. Emma Stone, heroes to both humans and aliens alike. The chamber was packed. More species had joined the cooperative in the past year than had joined the council in the previous century. 1 year ago, Marcus began, this chamber witnessed the end of one era and the beginning of another. Not through destruction, but through understanding. The council speaker, their scales now showing the green of growth and renewal, nodded in agreement. The humans taught us a lesson we had forgotten over our many millennia of existence. Age does not equal wisdom, and pride blinds us to new possibilities. In the year since the revolution, things had changed dramatically. Human-alien joint ventures sprouted across the galaxy. Council worlds eagerly adopted new human innovations, while humans learned from the deep knowledge of older civilizations. It was a golden age of cooperation and discovery. The Star Trader Memorial University opens next month, Marcus announced to the chamber. It will be the galaxy's first truly integrated center of learning, where young minds from all species can study together, combining the fresh perspective of youth with the wisdom of age. Dr. Stone stood up next, activating a holographic display. Our joint quantum research teams have made incredible progress. By combining council experience with human innovation, we've discovered ninth-dimensional quantum mechanics. The possibilities are endless. The chamber buzzed with excitement. The same representatives who once mocked human science now leaned forward eagerly, their earlier arrogance replaced by genuine curiosity. Admiral Cooper stepped forward next. The combined fleet patrols have been a success. Human ships working alongside council vessels have reduced piracy by 80%. When we work together, we are stronger than we ever were apart. In the public gallery, a young alien student raised their hand. A new practice introduced by humans to encourage open dialogue. Ambassador Wells, why did the old council ignore the humans' warnings? Didn't they see how dangerous that could be? Marcus smiled at the question. The student's teacher, a former council scientist, answered instead. Sometimes, young one, those who think they know everything become blind to new ideas. The humans didn't beat us with superior strength. They beat us with creativity and adaptability. They showed us that true wisdom lies not in knowing everything, but in always being ready to learn. The student nodded thoughtfully. So being young can be an advantage. Every age has its advantages, Marcus replied. Youth brings fresh eyes and new ideas. Age brings experience and deep understanding. The secret is learning to value both. As the session continued, reports came in from across the galaxy. Trade was booming. Scientific discoveries were accelerating. Cultural exchange was flourishing. The dark predictions of chaos and decline that some had made after humanity's rise had proven false. Let this be recorded in the eternal archives. The speaker announced, their scales shimmering with multiple colors of joy and wisdom. The greatest power in the universe is not weapons or technology or even knowledge. It is the ability to admit when we are wrong and to learn from those we once dismissed. Marcus looked around the chamber, remembering that day a year ago when he had tried to warn them. The tragedy of the Star Traders still hurt, but their sacrifice had led to something remarkable. A true partnership of species, young and old, learning from each other. As the session ended, a group of young aliens approached the human representatives, eager to ask questions. Among them was the child of one of the Star Traders' crew members, now studying quantum physics with council scientists. The future was uncertain, as it always is, but for the first time in galactic history, all species faced that uncertainty together, each contributing their unique strengths to the greater whole. The new order had begun, and this time, no voice would go unheard, no warning ignored, no species dismissed as too young or too primitive to matter. For in the end, the humans had taught the galaxy its most important lesson. True civilization begins with respect, grows through cooperation, and thrives on diversity.